Well, hello, friends, and welcome to the From Busy to Rich podcast, where we help financial advisors grow their businesses beyond the products they sell and the assets they manage to increase profitability and reclaim their time by providing strategies and insights that will not only change your life, but practice. Wes, it's great to see you this morning. How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic, Justin. You look wonderful as usual.
Oh, thank you. A nice clean shaven. We were just talking about that. It was temporarily traumatic with my family, but I think they're making the adjustment.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to show up. But I'm excited about today's episode, and I won't tease it too much. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest today?
Yeah, Justin, I'm super excited. We've got Matt Halloran on our show, and you're going to learn a lot about him if those of you who may not be familiar with him. But one thing you need to know is if you just listen and you don't go to YouTube to watch this, you got to show up for the YouTube because he's got a killer beard, man. And I'm going to tell you, I was telling him, Justin, how he's had his for years, kind of maybe varying lengths, but it's always been this really cool beard. And I said, yours is like kind of going to a hair carnival. You never really know what it is you're going to get. So, but I'm super grateful, Matt, for you joining us on the show. Thanks for being here today. And man, I just love it if you would take a little bit of time for our listeners and tell them, man, what lights you up, what you do for advisors and podcast world and all the things you got going on in your life.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you very much for having me as a guest. So my partner, Kirk Lowe, and I started this in about 2017, 2018, depending on, if you look at the fiscal year or not. And he was a marketing and branding consultant, and I was a practice management consultant. And we really just wanted to disrupt the industry and really help advisors do what they need, which is to amplify their voice, right? That's so many of you guys will say things to me like, I'm the best kept secret in my area. And man, I wish more people knew about this. Or gosh, I wish I didn't have to have that exact same Roth conversion conversation that I've had 9,000 times with my existing clients. How can we scale that? And so that's what Kirk and I wanted to go ahead and build. A way to stop you guys from being the best kept secret in your area, using podcasting as the hub of this entire system that you guys are currently using, and that we've done over 10,000 episodes and over 150,000 social media posts. So we've done a few of these.
That's awesome. Well, I know we are clients of yours, so we appreciate all your assistance and help. And you and I've had the opportunity to visit a few times on just the way we think and ideas, and share a lot of common ground in that specific space. I would love it. I've got one of my favorite quotes by Stephen Pressfield. He wrote The War of Art, just an amazing book. And it says this, most people have two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. And between those two stands resistance. And I know for our organization, it's like one of the heartbeats that we have is how do we help people really unleash their human potential to continue to dance with that resistance, to really live that unlived life within them. So I'd love if you could just talk a little bit about that, because I know you share very similar passion.
I do. And as a recovering practice management and life coach in financial services, guys, that was what I dealt with all the time. Right. And so there's a great video. If you just YouTube this and type in rabbi and lobster, it's one of the greatest short videos that you're ever going to see. And it's this rabbi talking about how a lobster grows, and that within its shell, it has to grow to such an uncomfortable situation that it actually cracks the shell open. And so many of us, when we hit that resistance, we give up because it's uncomfortable. And I firmly believe that those people who go from Jim Collins' good to great really embrace that level of discomfort and want to seek out being uncomfortable, finding those resistance points, because that's where all growth really happens.
I love it. And I was thinking about this. I'd love to get just your kind of slant on it. Those resistance points, those things that we're going to encounter, we're going to have to dance with, that kind of center around, I don't know, I throw it into these three big categories. I'm sure there's more, but one of them is fear. The other is fatigue. And then I think the other is just arrogance that prevent us from doing it. And just speak to any of those or all of them, whatever you think.
Well, so one of the things that I've been blessed with, and I'm very grateful for this, is I'm never the smartest person in every room. And that's not what our clients, right? Because we both serve the same client base. they're usually the smartest person in every room, right? And so that level of arrogance and that, well, if I'm good at this, therefore I must be good at this, that's where I believe everybody falls down from really achieving their greatness. One of my old mentors, we were just talking about earlier, his name is Omani Carson. One of the things that he said is, I can be good at everything or I can be great at a few things. Why would I waste my time doing something that I can hire somebody who's better at it than I could possibly be? And really what it is, and I'm going to break this down in my old coach speak, which is, for everything you want in life, you have to be willing to give up something proportionate to that want. You can give up time, talents, treasures, relationships, and control. And with everything you were just saying there, Wesley, that fits within that system very, very clearly. You have to be willing to give up something, whether that's your time, talents, treasures, relationships, or control. But if you want to make $1 million, you need to realize you got to give up $1 million worth of one of those 5 things or all of those 5 things. That's not how the universe works. The universe doesn't just give you everything for free.
Yeah. That kind of trade-off, that dance of things. I love it because I think in general, most people, they kind of do life by default instead of by design. Mm-hmm. They don't think about, okay, what do I really want? What is that big ambition that lives out there for me that I think would be a rich life over the next several years that we could grow to? And I think there's a great new book out right now, The Science of Scaling by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, which is really cool. He talks about having an impossible goal with an impossible deadline. And I think it speaks deeply into what you just said, Matt, is that he talks about how this idea of when you have an impossible goal in an impossible deadline, it forces you to say, okay, if I was going to try and hit that, about 80% of what you're doing right now is not going to get you there. And you're going to have to say no to certain things and get rid of things that got you where you are in some cases. And that's really scary. So thoughts or ideas around that?
Well, first off, we always used to call them BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals. And so what do you want to do that and Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach talks about this all the time, what you can do today versus what you can plan for 10 years, you can hit those things as long as you create the systems to be able to do that. I'm going to be fully transparent with you guys. Goal setting drives me nuts, right? And the reason why it drives me nuts is because I don't believe that anybody's that serious, right? And the other thing that drives me nuts is everybody says, well, January 1st, I'm going to set my new, really, what is that arbitrary? It's just like you're procrastinating. It's like, no, do it now. What are you doing now? What are you waiting for? Why are you setting all of these, parameters in place for you to really achieve who you are? And lastly, I also firmly believe this, and this is what you guys do every day, all day. You are not a professional unless you have a real coach, period. End of story.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a professional basketball, I like basketball. It's like the only sport I pay attention to. Look at the best basketball players. They have a strength coach. They have a PR coach. They've got a ball handling coach. They've got their head coach. They've got their assistant coach. They got all of these coaches.
Yeah.
And that's why they're able to perform at that level. If you're a financial advisor and you don't have a trusted person in your corner whose sole focus in life is to help you become the best you can be, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I think that's a critical point because we preach this every single time we get the opportunity to talk about this topic. Justin and I have been longtime members of Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan, and people always ask me, well, what does it do for you, like when you're there? And I said, well, one, it takes away the New Year's resolution syndrome, which is it isn't once a year we get together and go, here's all the things I don't like. Here's all the things I like. Here's all the things I'm going to do. I'm going to radically change everything. And then a month later, you're back to where you were because you're not good at change. You're not good at evolution, at taking new and making it a part of your normal. And, the brain, for anything to become muscle memory and succinct, it's work. It's a different kind of energy than just running off muscle memory. And so Strategic Coach is a way, no matter what's going on, for every quarter, I got to fly somewhere. We go to Santa Monica, California, and think about where are we going? And what are we doing now? And what's no longer relevant? And what do we need to blend into the rhythm of our normal? And we run. And then next quarter, we do it again. And And we constantly are like monitoring, iterating along the way in between those 2 points. But I love the idea of, we've had all kinds of different kinds of coaches. Frankly, it's what led us to you guys, Matt, when, we'd had a podcast, been, 100 plus episodes, and we just wanted to be better. And so we found out about you guys and said, hey, tell us what we should do. Tell us what you guys think in light of what we've been doing. Where can we take this to the next level? And that's what's been super helpful for us. So I'd love to, for you guys, because you serve people that in some cases have never done a podcast. They've not done one episode. Some cases, guys like us that have shown up and done it. Talk about like what that is like for that advisor and kind of the mindset that coming in, and what do you often experience, the people that, man, they embrace it and run with it, and those that just struggle.
So we have a saying here at ProudMouth that you can't half-ass your podcast, you have to whole-ass your podcast, right?
Love it.
And that's what I think happens a lot of times is guys, they just show up and they think that, well, I talk for a living, I'm going to be great behind the microphone. And that is not the case. And you also need to have a strategy. And I think that's one of the big things for that people who had existing shows like you guys did, right? They want to come in and they want to take their podcast to the next level. Well, what does that mean? Well, increase your confidence, increase your performance, increase your planning, increase your production, increase your overall, promoting of the show. That's what we do for people like you. Our ultimate goal is to make it so that you guys not only know what this show's about, but what your next 10 shows are going to be about. What's your format going to be? Here's the crazy thing. So I'm not going to use his name, but he was a friend of mine. Early on became a client of ProudMouth. National Speakers Hall of Fame. This guy charges 25 grand for a 45-minute keynote. He does it 6-7 times a month. Okay. This guy is one of the best speakers. He wanted to start a podcast. We got done with his first couple of shows. My team sent it to me and they're like, you going to talk to this guy? Hell yeah, I'm going to talk to the guy. And I had to break down a whole bunch of stuff, mic usage, camera usage, his plosives, all of the things that he didn't ever have to focus on, because when you're on main stage, you're just talking at people. And this is meant to be that give and take conversation like you guys have. That's a fundamentally different discipline. Now he's 110 episodes in and he's killing it. Right. It's actually made him a better speaker, which he brought to my attention when I just saw him recently. But that's the other thing that I think is really funny is advisors will say to me, well, my podcast isn't producing what I want. Well, what do you want?
Yeah.
They can't define what they want. I'm like,
I know, but this isn't it.
Yeah, it's not working. Well, so what does it look like when it is working? And unless you can visualize what you want your marketing or your life to be, dude, you're swinging in the wind.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to From Busy to Rich. If you're listening and something sparks a question or you just want to explore these ideas further, visit us at wesyounglive.com or email us at info@wesyounglive.com. You'll find free resources, tools, and ways to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
This is such a fun area of conversation because one of the things that, running an organization our size and at your size, periodically, everybody's a little wired different, but periodically you get somebody that comes in and goes, well, I don't think things are going well. And I'd say, okay. So, and they'll tell me, here's the things that are just tough and not good. And I said, okay, well, let me just ask you a clarifying question here. What would a day in the life of you look like if it was great? And very few times can a person who's minded that way actually give me an answer. And I'm like, well, if you can't, how do we even know the first step to getting there? And it is so foundational. I heard a guy talk about this the other day. He said, it's easier to dislike something than to solve something.
Oh, yeah.
And in your experience, like when you're bumping up against that, is there some ways that some tips and ideas and language that you use to kind of break somebody out of that?
Yeah, and this is probably going to sound arrogant, so I'm going to preface that because honestly, it's one of those things. So there's a wonderful movie called The Water Boy, and I love this movie for a lot of reasons. One, because I think it's hysterical. Probably wouldn't play as well today in today's world as it did, when it came out. But one of the things that happens, they're up against this coach, right? And he's got all of the rings, right? And so when somebody would question him, he would just do this and they're like, yeah, well, you've won 20 championships, right? I think those of us as coaches really need to lean into those wins, right?
Yeah.
Have you helped produce 10,000 podcasts? I've been on 1,000 podcasts myself. I've studied what it means to be a great interviewer. I have interview heroes, right? I have people who I know right now. I got to pull out an Oprah, and now I'm going to pull a Phil Donahue, and oh my God, here's the Terry Gross that I'm going to sprinkle in here. So as a podcast host, I'm always pulling from my bag of tricks, my plays, if you will, when I know that that's what needs to happen. And so a lot of it is, when I was a practice management consultant, I had actually coached over 1,000 financial advising offices. Okay. You've owned one, dude, right? So you have no idea what is going on outside of your own little world. And that's what a good coach does. A good coach is going to meet you where you're at, really find out where you have room to grow, and then hopefully push you really hard to be able to grow.
Yeah, it reminds me of this idea we talk about a lot, which is that happiness is not found, it is formed. It's a deliberate methodology to continuing to decide, all right, what is it and how do we get there and how do we surround ourselves with the best possible people that are going to help raise the whole the whole level of the ocean. So I want to switch gears a little bit with you on this. So what is a question when you are, you're this wealth of knowledge in this space and you've done some really cool stuff? What is a question when you are on here that you get off of a podcast interview and maybe it went great and you say, man, I really wish he would have asked me this?
So I build that into my shows. I don't know if you guys notice this, but I do a Columbo trick at the end. So when the show's about to wrap up, one of the things that I will say is, I'll kind of start looking like I'm closing, right? Hey, Wesley, Justin, you guys are fantastic. Thank you very much for being on the show. I'm sure that all of our guests are going to be really interested. Make sure you go to the show notes and, click on the stuff that we talked about today. But guys, hey, this is my favorite question, but what should I have asked you that I didn't? And then I shut up. And dude, honestly, that's when the magic happens. I mean, the rest of the show is probably very, very good, right? But because they let their guard down, and there's a couple of pieces like that from a technique standpoint, one of the things that I look for as a podcast, I will answer your question in just a second.
Yeah.
Is most people are coming to be a guest on your show. And for those of you who are just listening, my shoulders are way up. Right. And so what I do as a podcast host is I try to do things, and there's some techniques you can use to make them drop their shoulders, because that means that they're relaxed. They're going to do a better show. And to be honest, the minute I see your shoulders drop, bam, I hit record. And because then they can't get back into their head because, oh my God, I'm recording. It's ready to go. So what is the question? I think the question is that very few people ask me, and I think it's because it's a difficult question, is how do we know if our marketing is working? Everybody's afraid of that question because it's got a terrible answer. But I think it's an honest discussion that more people need to have, especially in our industry.
And so how would you answer that one?
So first off, it's very, very layered. Number one, you have to have specific desired outcomes, and it can't always be brand new business.
Yeah.
Right. Because if that's what you're singularly focused on, then the other aspects of return on investment are not going to happen. And so we really have 5 ROIs here that we talk about. So the first one is deepening relationships with existing clients. Guys, the best thing that you can do is to be an omnipresent, ever-present voice for your clients so that you can have that Roth conversion conversation at scale. So your clients call up and say, gosh, you know what, Justin? I've heard you say this thing about Roth conversions 40 times. I think it's about time that I do that. Okay, great. So we'll get the paperwork ready. It's really, really easy, right? So there's number one. Number two is the actual content itself has value. And this is what just blows me away. People you had hundreds of podcasts in the can. They all are individually valuable. And in fact, you can put a price, because we do, on all of that content that is written, right? So there is an actual unstated value that happens with that. The third one is deepening relationships with centers of influence. Guys, you just had me on your show, right? So here's the deal. I'm not going to forget this. My relationship with both of you is fundamentally changed because you gave me this opportunity. And you do that with other centers of influence. You're going to get more referrals. You're going to have happier relationships with those people and different things to talk about. So that's number 3. Number 4, selling new products to existing clients. Oh my God. My favorite story of all times in the podcasting world is We had a guy who did web seminars. He's a big seminar marketer, spends $20,000 a month on seminars, right? And he probably brings in 10 million a month in new assets, right? So this guy's a grinder. But he does an estate planning seminar. So he brought an estate planning attorney on his podcast. And he got done with the show. Phone started ringing after it was published. And all of these people wanting to come in to fund their trusts.
Yeah.
Because he hadn't really talked about it since the webinar, and one of them it was $3 million. And the crazy part about it is she was like, I've been listening to your show and you all don't know that. Like, I don't know exactly who's listening to my show, but I know people are listening. And that's the other thing. And then the last one is not new business, right? But podcasting, marketing, it has to actually drive people somewhere. And that's where a lot of people fall down, is your call to action's terrible. Well, listen to my show. That's not going to get you new business. Subscribe to my show. That's not going to get you new business. Download this white paper now. I've moved them into my owned audience from a rented audience. And that's where you can start directly marketing to them. But that's the sort of stuff that I think a lot of people, they don't really understand the expectations. They have unrealistic expectations. And then the last thing is they talk about vanity metrics, guys. And this is what drives me nuts. As a boutique, larger scale podcasting firm, I can't bring on 20 new clients a month. I just can't, right? So I don't need 10,000, 100,000 people listening to my show, because if all of those people wanted to do business with me, we'd be done. I mean, we'd just pass out and have a stroke. So I want to make sure that I'm getting my message in front of my exact ideal target market with clear and succinct messaging. And that's the ultimate goal.
So that is so good. And I want everybody to come listen to this. I want you to come back to, let's just take the very first one that you mentioned, deepening the client relationship with existing clients. Mm-hmm. So we're having this session this week in Transform on the annual experience process with your clients. And one of the biggest deals is like, people are always going, well, how do you get new people? How do you get new people? How do you get new people? Be really good with your existing people. Give them an experience worth talking about. Put them in a position where they're out there talking about you. We get referrals every week. We don't ask for them. They just come in. People said, hey, you worked with Matt. He said you guys did this really cool thing for him. Can we have a conversation about what it might look like to work together? That person's coming in engaged and just ready to go, versus you take it like when you're brand new in the business. Mm. And I know everybody that started in this sucker, it's like I was 24 years old, Matt, when I came into the business. And I remember what they would teach you is, okay, here's how you get people to come to the first meeting. Well, because nobody's calling you because you don't have an experience, right? You're knocking on the door saying, hey, you want to come to my house? You want to come to my house and like come inside, sit on the couch, see if you like a conversation. Then we can go eat dinner in the living room. And so people come in resistant. Mm-hmm. If you get them, they come in resistant. They don't know how they ended up there, but they're like, I don't know, I'm here. And then they come in, maybe tolerant would be another one. But there's nothing like coming in engaged. And when you create an experience worth talking about, that just is gold. And the podcast medium is a great one. This is a podcast for financial advisors, clearly. But it's about how do you live a cool life? How do you help people? How do you expand and live what your human potential is? And I can tell you, this podcast goes around to plenty of people who are not in the financial space, and they're like, oh, that was really cool. Well, how'd you hear? Well, I heard your podcast. I know it's for financial advisors, but it really translates to my business. So I totally agree and love that if you don't have a good client experience, the problem with your marketing is not lack of awareness. It is not. Turning up the volume is not going to help you. You just need a better process. So have you observed that like when you have somebody that's, let's say, you're looking at doing a podcast for them, they're working it, and you just have to have that conversation that, man, it's your client experience is not all that worth talking about. Has that come up?
Yes. It's very interesting, the evolution of ProudMouth, right? And so, for a lot of our time, Kirk and I's time together, it's been building this business and, getting our systems in place and all of that sort of stuff. And we both kind of abandoned what we were when we became one, which, he was a marketing branding consultant. I was a practice management consultant. And guys, It's all coming back now. Maybe we started a Sonic Boom coaching program because I needed to coach financial advisors to be better behind the microphone because they weren't doing it well. And I saw this huge gap within the space. And I sat down and I brought it to Kirk and he was like, dude, you want to start coaching again? I was like, yeah, I guess I do. And it's something that we really, really, really enjoy. But the problem is it's all intertwined, man. I mean, it's not, you can't, and I know a lot of busy professionals want to do that they want to compartmentalize everything.
Yeah.
But it's one fluid system. You said something though. I want to go back to something that you said just a second ago, because I understand your business model, right? And I'm going to give all of your listeners a reason to transform and to start really living the life that they want to live while still helping their business. And I know this is part of your guys' system. So this is a little bit of maybe icing or a candle or two on the cake, right? Create content surrounding the freaking stuff you love, guys. Oh my God. So Kirk, who's a very private person, and I love that about him. One of his best performing posts that he ever did, which actually I think got us business, was a picture of him with his kids down by the lake. Kirk was a paddler, like all the way through college. In Canada, that's a big deal, right? Because there's water everywhere, and what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
And so you need to do that. Whatever your passion is, whatever feeds your soul, shoot a quick video right when, not while you're doing it, because I'm not talking about humble bragging here. I'm saying, hey, I just got done doing this and I just want to tell all of my friends and all of my clients and all of my family, this is something that feeds my soul. What feeds your soul? That is the greatest content you're ever, past your thought leadership, past all of the other smart stuff that you know. That's going to make a deep, deep connection point with your audience. And that's going to even feed it so that you want to continue to transform.
Man, I can't think of a better place to land the plane here, because that is just a beautiful mindset and a beautiful process of kind of iterating. What does feed your soul out there, guys? And in fact, what feeds your client's soul? Have you asked them? Because that's a really important question. If you're aligning the use of their capital with what they really care about, we really need to dig into what they really care about and not just assume you know. So, Brother Matt, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing all your wonderful ideas. And Matt, how can they get connected with ProudMouth? If this is something that's you've been, because all of you ask me this sometimes, and I tell you the same answer, but where do I go if I want to get started in like doing a show?
So the best thing to do is actually connect with me or ProudMouth on LinkedIn, because we're constantly sharing things to be able to help you start your own show, make good decisions, make sure that our system is really right for you. And then of course you can go to proudmouth.com to find out more about who we are and what we do. But the best thing is connect with me on LinkedIn. I respond to all of my own DMs, just so everybody knows. I manage my own LinkedIn, which is kind of a big deal. It takes a lot of time, but it's something I really, really love, because I am really, truly here to be helpful. I am here to sell you stuff, but I'm also here to be able to be helpful.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.